Well, it's the spooky season, which means that it's time to get into another spooky horror movie. If you could hit the thumbs up, that would be great, and subscribe to the channel. So I just got finished watching the movie Red State from Kevin Smith in 2011. And it was a very interesting film because this is kind of the pre-Trump America kind of being criticized at the time. There was a lot of religious paranoia. There was a lot of paranoia surrounding sexuality. This was right around the time when same-sex marriage was being inducted into our society as being legalized. So this is one of those movies that, you know, has a message to it. You know, it's obviously saying something about religion, specifically organized religion. At the time, in this time period, there was this whole ordeal happening with the Westboro Baptist Church and, you know, all the things they were doing. So, you know, it's kind of a time capsule of sorts. Like, I think if this film were released nowadays, it would get a lot of blowback because of the post-Trump era, I'm going to call it, where, you know, Christianity is like this holy protected thing that people have to stand behind as some kind of like bastion of like, you know, ultimate morality. Ironically, for a long time was criticized for its, you know, hypocritical approach to morality, like especially because of how people in these religions, how they treat other people, how they interpret the Bible to suit their hateful narratives, you know, condemning homosexuality to the point where it turns into a fully like extremist viewpoint, which there's not like a lot of these, you know, hyper extremist Christians running around just killing people. But in this movie, like it kind of sets this up as like a terrorist group where they're just kind of killing people based on some perceived sin. And so that's kind of the message that Kevin Smith is trying to dole out to us. Now, not like 10 or so years prior, he came out with Dogma, which was like this, you know, fun, kind of party animal kind of viewpoint of Christianity, how we could just kind of have fun with like our belief in God and Jesus. This movie is like the anti-Dogma. Like whatever that movie was trying to say and communicate about Christianity and believing in God and Jesus, this is basically setting things fully in reality in like this stark contrast. Like there's not even any music in the movie. Like there's no music whatsoever. It's like this very kind of real kind of tone to it where it's very flat. And that's kind of the tone that we're going for. And, you know, I guess I would categorize this film as like a thriller, like a horror thriller, like religious kind of thing. But it kind of turns into like this weird action movie. And then I guess it's trying to say something satirical, like about religion and like, you know, the state also, like the police and, you know, the government and how they, you know, like basically how people, they put these things on a pedestal with religion and the establishment, like, and both of them are ultimately flawed. I think that's the message of the movie. I mean, I could be mistaken. And honestly, I was kind of putting off seeing this movie for a long time. Like, it just didn't seem like my kind of movie. Like, I'm not a religious person as it is, so I don't feel like I need to be like lectured any kind of anti-religious message because I already don't believe in it. I don't hate religion. I don't hate like people believing in stuff, and I don't really feel like they need like a, you know, a ham-fisted like horror, you know, presented message like, you know, oh, you're just evil Christians trying to, you know, kill people that you hate because you hate homosexuality. And because even that is like, there's a nuanced discussion to have there. And I just feel like it opens up a lot of like, you know, talks about like, oh, I got to think about what, you know, this religious group actually thinks, and, you know, the arguments behind, you know, gay marriage. And I don't even want to like really think about that. So, like, I go to a movie for escapism, and I can tell that when Kevin Smith made this movie, he didn't make it for the escapists. He made it to ground people in reality. Like, he wanted to just make people feel unpleasant, damn near bored, honestly. Like, I was bored in a lot of sections of this movie. It's not even a long movie, but it felt like forever. Like, this is like an hour and 20-minute movie, and it felt like it was like 3 hours long. Because the pacing, like something about the pacing, it's like Kevin Smith cannot pace a scene nowadays, or maybe it's just with his more experimental movies. Like, this movie comes from the era where he was making really weird off the wall films like Tusk. There's Yoga Hosers or whatever the hell that movie was. I mean, there's lots of little experiment movies he made after he was kind of done making his Askewniverse movies. I think after like Clerks 2 or whatever, like he just kind of got bored and wanted to do something else. So he kind of escaped into doing these very weird, almost political, grounded kind of films that made you feel uncomfortable, you know, and there's like a message to be learned. And there is like a kernel of like a message here that I guess I can understand and even get behind. You know, like everyone kind of treats things as like these ultimate things we have to believe in, right? Whether it's the state or religion, and they're ultimately very flawed. Like every like established thing that people put their faith into, and faith can be interpreted in different ways, right? But the tone of this movie is where it kind of loses me, because it starts off as kind of like this, you know, this teen comedy. Like I almost feel like I'm watching like a realistic like Beavis and Butthead skit, except there's 3 of them. Like there's Beavis and Butthead and like, you know, Vagina Face or whatever. And I was like mildly entertained. You know, they had like the undercurrent of like, obviously there's like some, you know, hateful Christians hating on, you know, homosexuals and stuff, a lot of homophobia going around. Even the kids like say like the F slur to each other, and that's kind of like it's like a weird undercurrent, like where the homophobia is happening even outside of the religious cult in the movie. So there's clearly like, you know, a message in here about homophobia, but it's more like used as like a blunt instrument just to like, you know, shit on cult-like Christians. And basically any cult-like establishments in our country, at least. So it starts off as like this teen comedy kind of thing, and then it kind of morphs into this cult thriller, which I'm on board with. I you know, torture porn was like a huge thing at the time that this movie came out. You had Saw, you had Hostel, you had lots of movies like that at the time that were very big, very popular. So I can understand, like, and even Tusk, you know, fits into that mold of being like this torture porn, you know, kind of movie where it's very grim and gritty and like just very stark realism that's like terrifying. But my problem is it doesn't hold that line. Like then it wants to become like this preachy thing, and they literally preach to you. Like I feel like I'm listening to the religious zealot guy, who by the way is the same guy as the mad scientist guy in Tusk. I don't know. I guess Kevin Smith just really likes that actor. What's his name? Michael Parks. So Michael Parks, he's like this sermon guy who just preaches on and on and on. Like he never shuts up. And I'm like, I get it. Like you're telling like this religious, you know, preaching sermon or whatever, like to your crowd, you know, like like they're in the pews and all that. And I get the scene. You don't need to stretch it on for 10 minutes. You know, this movie could have easily been like, you know, like a tight, like 60 minutes, you know? Even then I think they could have made some concessions. You had Kyle Gallner in this, who's like a very early very young Kyle Gallner before he's, you know, he's becoming kind of a bigger actor these days. He's taken a lot of great roles, but he's pretty decent in this movie. I just feel like he's kind of wasted though. Like he has to share the screen time with other actors. Like John Goodman's in this, which I love John Goodman, you know, don't get me wrong. I feel like he even like is kind of wasted. There is one scene where he's like yelling at Stephen Root. I'm not going to spoil it if you want to see this movie that badly, but that was like the one moment in this movie that genuinely made me laugh out loud. That was about it. But it was so like tonally just discordant with the rest of the film. Like it did not fit with the rest of the movie, but I loved it anyway. You even had some Breaking Bad alums, because at the time Breaking Bad was on TV. You had Anna Gunn, who played Skylar on Breaking Bad. You had Matt Jones, who played Badger. You know, I just noticed like some weird analogs with like other creatives at the time. Like there was, you know, Breaking Bad. There's I even watching this movie, I was thinking of Mike Judge. I felt like there was a Beavis and Butthead kind of tone in the beginning. And then you had Stephen Root, who was in Office Space, and he was also, you know, in that short that he made for SNL, like, I don't know, 40 years ago. That was basically the prelude to Office Space. Anyway, so getting onto like the themes of, you know, the symbolisms of Christianity, basically they're portrayed as these creepy cults. And I think Kevin Smith is trying to say something about the establishment of Christianity itself, not Christians, because it's not like you can't be a Christian and be a good person, but the cult of Christianity and the religious leader, analogous to the preachers at the time that try to like manipulate people, especially the Westboro Baptist Church, like that kind of thing. You know, I think that was what he was critiquing, that and like the judgmental nature of those churches. That's what he didn't like. And I think that's the message she was trying to send. I get the feeling that people probably wouldn't like this movie who are religious, period, because they're going to see it as painting them as some kind of like evil cult, which I could understand. I can understand feeling like slighted in that way, because he didn't really even do a good job of like delineating between like the evil Christians and the good Christians. Like there is no good Christians in this movie. You know, there's no like good Christian that comes forward and is like, I believe in God and I'm a good person and I believe in this and that. You know what I mean? There's nothing like that. There's just like these Christians that are evil, homophobic. They want to kill people. They want to indoctrinate kids, you know, just like, you know, behind a smile, like just the most evil Christians. So I can see how Christians would find this offensive. Like take a movie like Falling Down with Mike Douglas. There's one part in the movie where he meets the Nazi and the Nazi's like, you and me, we're the same. And there's a line where it's specifically delineated. It's like, no, I'm an American. You're a sick asshole. That is like the perfect way to delineate your, you know, extremist character from other extremist viewpoints. You know, it's okay to like, you know, cast a Christian cult in such a way, but you have to paint the alternative that is better in some way. Like, yeah, Mike Douglas, he might have been an insane guy on the loose, but he wasn't hateful of anyone in particular. You know, he didn't have hate in his heart for like races or other religions or anything like that. And so they wanted to kind of dispel that in that movie. And I feel like that's something that Kevin Smith doesn't try to do in this one. But there's lots of, you know, themes of like, you know, sin and like any kind of sexual perversion is seen as a sin, not just homosexuality. Like there's one point in the movie where, you know, they're going to kill this kid and he's like, I'm not even gay. And it's like, well, you were going to like, you know, do this other sexual thing that's also perverse. So, you know, that's even worse. It's like, okay, well, I guess no one can win. Where's the line? Like if you're jerking off, like, is that going to get you sent to hell? Like, I want to know what the line is, you know? So, but there's there's a line in the movie about like cleansing the world of gays, like they're a disease or something because gays don't reproduce. And, you know, that's going to basically exterminate the human race, right? It's like an enemy of the human race if gays don't reproduce. Like, why would you want them reproducing anyway? I don't even get like the logic, honestly. It's like there's already overcrowding in the world. Like I don't understand. There's like a whole, you see what I'm saying? Like there's a whole like, you know, conversation to be had here that I don't even want to have when I'm doing a movie review. You know what I'm saying? Like I just want to say if it's entertaining or not. Ultimately, I felt bored most of the time. I felt like it was a very talky script, which, you know, Kevin Smith, he can make really good talky scripts, like in Chasing Amy or Clerks. Like these are movies that are almost expressly conversation-driven scripts where they feel natural and the dialogue is funny and witty, and, you know, I just love it. Like those are some of my favorite scripts. But this is like, oh my God, it's so monotonous and like plotting. And I'm like, do I even need to listen to this? Like there's one scene where John Goodman's literally talking on the phone for like 10 minutes and we don't even hear the other person on the other line. We just look at John Goodman talking and we're just supposed to understand the whole conversation. Like there's no back and forth that we're getting as the audience watching this. And I feel like that's a lot of the problem in this movie is there's a lot of talking, but I don't feel like I'm very engaged in what's being said. And I almost feel like I don't even need to listen. Like it doesn't matter if I miss 3 minutes of John Goodman talking to his superior when that scene could have been like 30 seconds long, and they stretch it out for like 10. I don't know. I think he's trying to like pad out the film because it's already like kind of a short premise. Like this could have been something that was, you know, made a decent action movie. Like there was one scene in the movie. There's like the cinematographer of this movie, shockingly, is the same cinematographer that's worked with Kevin Smith on pretty much all his films to date. But he got this very special camera, like it's a red camera that's able to capture action in a very, you know, dynamic way. They had like a couple of action scenes in this movie where there's like shootouts and there's people running and stuff. And I'm like, this is great. Like this stuff, if the whole movie had been like more of this would have been like an entertaining action thriller, you know? Like if someone just helped Kevin Smith to iron out like the pacing and the tone and like all the scenes to be like more cohesive and like more, you know, scary, but also action thrillery, like you could have had like a very decent action thriller on your hands. But as such, it's just like a tonal mess. Like I feel like I'm being, you know, it's like whiplash throughout the whole movie. Like it just, there's like devoid of any like real tension in the dialogue. And I feel like if you're not going to have music in your movie, you better be damn confident of the dialogue and the direction of your scenes to where people are going to stay engaged in what's being said. Because I'll tell you right now, I don't want to listen to like 10 minutes of a sermon where it's like, I get the idea. Like, he's a religious zealot who is indoctrinating his crowd. I get it. You don't need to go on for 10 minutes about that, you know? Like, let us feel what the victims are feeling in this moment where they're being captured and all that. Like, let us feel that. I'm not gonna even go over like the plot really, because if you really are interested in seeing this movie, like you'll see it yourself if you really want to see it. If you're interested at all in the themes that I'm talking about for this movie, then you'll go see it if you're interested. But I feel like the plot is something that you should probably like go in blind. Like, it's something I can really say. Like, I can tell you like, yeah, okay, so there's homophobia because of this, radical church that's around. There's a religious leader that's crazy and very hateful. Then there's like some kids that want to like have sex with a woman, and stuff happens. The cops get involved. The church basically captures them, and it's like a whole thing. That's basically the plot. I don't want to like really go through every little detail of it, because that's not really the important part of this movie. The important part is like, is it fun to watch? Is it entertaining? Is it engaging? And I will say maybe a third or fourth of the time I feel like engaged in this movie. So ultimately, I feel like this is not one of Kevin Smith's smarter, more entertaining movies. I feel like this is a very bold choice. Like, yeah, it's a bold decision to make this kind of movie. And, I commend him for stepping outside of what he usually did. And he did take this fairly seriously. Like, this is not like a satire. There was a message to be learned here, but this is not like a satirical film. It shifts like slightly into satirical territory, but it doesn't commit to it. I guess you could say the whole movie is like a satire on our society, if you want to say that. But everything in the movie is treated fairly seriously. There's some moments at the end where Kevin Smith kind of shows his hand, like, oh, even the government's corrupt. It's like, it's not just the religious people, it's also the government, and everyone's there's no, you can't trust anything or anyone or any group. Don't put anything on a pedestal because everything's shit. It's like, okay, I fine, I can get behind that apathetic kind of viewpoint, but it doesn't make for the most entertaining movie. I'll just put it that way. I feel like Kevin Smith, there's glimpses of a point to be made in this movie, like a decent movie being made, but I feel like I don't know, I feel like he dropped the ball with it. And so I'm gonna give this movie a 2 out of 5, and I'm being generous there because at least he did something really bold and different, and it occasionally hits on something that is poignant, but for the most part, it's not really enjoyable. So that's my judgment on this. If you could give me a thumbs up on this video, that would be great. And if you'd like me to review a movie, send me a donation of your choice, and I will think about it. So everyone, have a great one. Later.